Hi everyone, welcome to today's Hangout on Viewability. So my name is Olivia and I work here as a monetization specialist here in the online partnerships group in Google.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Balint. I'm a strategic partner manager here at Google, pretty much doing the similar job what Olivia does. So I'm helping publishers to grow their business and also increase their earnings from Google by optimizing their ad revenue.
Okay, so we're going to kickstart the presentation, but before we start, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end of the Hangout. So please feel free to submit your questions, and you can either do this under the live stream, or you can submit your questions in the last email that you received from us. Okay.
And we're very, very eager to get your questions, so feel free. There's no bad question, no wrong question. I would be very, very curious. I'm sure that Olivia is the same. Yeah. We would like to hear your thoughts, and we would really like to have this session to make this session very interactive and hear your thoughts and comments.
Great. Okay, well, let's kickstart.
So let's just go to the second slide. I guess if we just switch, then we're going to get through today's agenda. So today's agenda is actually consists of 4 key pillars that we're going to be talking about. So the first of one is what is viewability? Then the second part, why viewability is important. Third one, some best practices. Probably that's why you are all tuned in and would like to hear, okay, how could we actually improve your viewability? And then we will also be giving you some additional tips and resources to make sure that everything is implemented the correct way.
Great. Okay, well, let's kickstart. So what is viewability? So in this section, we'll define viewability, explain how it's measured, and also how you can monitor your own viewability. So an ad is considered viewable when at least 50% of the ad creative's pixels is in view for 1 consecutive second. So as you can imagine, having a higher viewability percentage therefore makes digital ad inventory more attractive to buyers, since a higher percentage of ads are going to be seen. So the good news for publishers is that you can now monitor viewability percentage of your ad inventory through reports in AdSense, in DoubleClick for Publishers, and in Ad Exchange. So within your account, you'll notice metrics such as active view, which is a metric that shows you how your viewability is going to be measured. So we measure active view in the exact same way that the Media Rating Council defines viewability. So as mentioned earlier, in order for an ad to be considered viewable, at least 50% of the ad's creatives must be within view for more than a second. So I think many publishers are aiming to achieve an account level viewability percentage over the industry average of 51%. However, some of the publishers we work with have achieved viewability rates of over 60%, and this is by implementing some of the best practices that we'll cover today.
And one thing to add here, actually, before we move on to the second section, I think most of you agree that if an ad is not shown on the page, then probably it's not in the right position on the page, or it's probably not generating me the expected revenue. So always keep in mind when it comes to the viewability, the media ratings definition, that half of the ad has to be visible for 1 second on the page. And when it comes to the reporting metrics, there are there's a large variety of metrics that you can use to define viewability and see how viewability is impacting your business. So in Google, when we look at the Google viewability metrics, we have the measurable ones, the viewable ones, and also the length of a viewable impression. So there are multiple ways of actually looking into how effectively I'm placing these ad units on my page. So the viewability metrics could be also considered as a heat map or numbers on a heat map, because they really show you where your users are spending most of their time. So always keep this in mind, and then you will definitely see why viewability is important to you.
Yeah, no, great. Okay, so let's move on. So why is viewability important? So in this section, we're going to cover the importance of viewability for the advertising ecosystem and also demonstrate the correlation between viewability and ad performance. So if an ad isn't seen, then it can't have impact. And this is a thought that we'd really like for you to take away from today's session. So whether an ad is being bought on a per click or per impression basis, if it's not seen, then it's not going to have impact for either the advertiser or the publisher. So viewability is really important for the digital advertising ecosystem as it brings a number of benefits. And this includes more brand dollars to digital, greater transparency and confidence to the market, and also a better user experience for our consumers. So with bringing more brand dollars to digital, this is in the same way that advertisers want to know if their TV ad is seen. They also want to measure it when it comes to online advertising. So improving the viewability of the ads on your sites can help attract additional spend from advertisers. With greater transparency, so having this metric such as viewability means that we have a common metric for both publishing and advertising stakeholders. So having a common metric means that both parties can be more confident that they're getting the right value for their spend and the inventory. And finally, improving load time speed not only ensures a better user experience, but also increases viewability of our ads. So a slow load speed can lead to users scrolling right past the ad space even before it's loaded. You might notice this sometimes when you visit a web page that's loading really slowly. So particularly when a publisher has the ad at the top of the mobile screen of the slow loading site, the user will often scroll down to the content before the ad is even loaded. So page speed is something that you should really focus on in order to improve the viewability to be as high as possible. So in case you've still got doubts about the importance of viewability, studies have shown that strong correlation between viewability and the performance of ads. So this makes sense when you think about what we mentioned earlier. So that if an ad isn't seen, then it just can't have impact. So an ad with lower viewability percentage will most likely generate less clicks and therefore less revenue than one with a higher viewability percentage.
And now, before we just jump into this, some of these findings that we're sharing with you. So last year, during the summer last year, we actually run some tests and experiments with multiple of our large publishers and also publishers on a smaller, with smaller size. And we were curious about the impact of viewability to certain metrics. So some of them could be the CTR, some of them could be the amount of seconds an ad is visible on the page. So we're using anonymized data in these slides that you're seeing moving forward. And these are exactly the numbers we were looking at, or actually the themes and trends we were looking at. And we're very happy to share these with you. So if we look at this example here.
So I guess having fewer higher quality ads is sometimes better for monetization, as there's a strong correlation, like we said, between viewability, the CTRs, and often the CPMs. So as a publisher, we recommend that you should test and trial the ideal number of ad slots per page on your site in the hope, really, of achieving higher viewability. So if we look at this example here, this is a great example of the correlation between the viewability and the ad CPMs. So as you can see, this publisher implemented lazy loading on their pages. So this is implemented tech to only load the ad positions in view. And as a result, they witnessed a 28% increase in viewability, a 72% increase in the ad request CPM, and a 2% increase in the overall revenue. So I guess viewability comes at the cost of inventory, as lazy loading is the most common lever for improving the metric. And alternatively, there's the hybrid model where the publisher can lazy load first, and then after a few page loads, use the load more button.
Yeah, and one example for this hybrid model is if you search for a kitten in the Google search bar, and then you switch to images. So you will get all the image results. And as you scroll down, you will start seeing that, okay, there's more and more, results are shown. But then after a while, probably about 2 or 3 or 4 pages, it just stops and you will see the load more button. So it actually gives you quite a good example how Google does it, or how we do it in our search results, this whole, and how do we utilize the lazy load technology.
Great, thanks for that example. Okay, so ad placements as well can be hugely impactful on viewability, And findings have shown that by moving ads closer to the content on the page can substantially increase viewability. So the example here shows that just by adjusting this 728 by 90 ad closer to the content, improved viewability by 20%. And likewise, for the 300 by 250 ad, this improved viewability by 15%.
Excellent. So as we move forward, I would like to share you some best practices for improving the viewability and share some examples what we do find on a daily basis when talking to publishers, what really works and what doesn't work, or what could work better in our opinion. So again, both Olivia and myself, we talk to publishers on a daily basis, and I'm probably right to say that we are in touch over 100 publishers on a weekly basis. It can vary as well, and we exchange ideas and also communicate in various forms. So it could be email, it could be phone, it could be phone conversations. So there are multiple channels where we exchange best practices and discuss optimization points, but we collected some of these best practices both for desktop and mobile, so it's been broken down for you. So when it comes to the best practices on desktop, let's just jump in there. So for viewability. All right, here we are. So one thing that I would like to talk about is position. So what I do here, especially for the larger publishers, is that, oh, we have the premium positions on our websites, and the above the fold positions are the most important ones to us. But when we actually dig in deeper, we do see that sometimes the premium positions as they are, or as they are perceived or thought by the publishers that those are the best positions, are not always the most lucrative or the best performing positions. So one of the things that I would like to call out is the above the fold and below the fold sections of a site. So if we look at the average viewability rates, it's obvious the above the fold performs better than below the fold. So usually ads viewability above the fold is 68%. Below the fold is 40%. And remember, we're talking about desktop. On the left, you can see this green laptop, I don't know, icon, yeah. And then it has a recommendation where the ad unit, especially a horizontal ad unit, could be placed. So as you can see, the ad unit in blue, that is supposed to be a 728 by 90 ad unit, but you can also put anything in there. So it could be a 970 by 250 as well. But as you can see, it performs really well in the lower section of the above the fold page. So not on the very top, but actually on the lower section. And why is it? Because users are interested in the content first. They would definitely, if you place an ad unit on the top of the page, they might just scroll down a bit just to see the title and then the first paragraph and the content itself, or an image. So always think about it where your users spend most of their time. You can also use the Google, if you use analytics, you can use the analytics toolbar to show what are the elements on your page where users click most. Then the opportunity here is really to place the horizontal ad units just above the fold, and that's where you can probably get the highest viewability rate. Then if we go to the format, so let's talk about the format. Position, I guess you get that. Format. So the vertical ad sizes are most likely to be viewed. And why is that? Because it's taking me more time to scroll through a vertical ad unit than a horizontal one, right? So it's longer, it goes down the page, so it's more likely to be seen. In these charts, you can actually see the comparison between the above the fold and below the fold ad performance for certain sizes. And you can see that on the right-hand side, there's the 728 by 90 and the 300 by 250 ad units. Even though they are some of the most popular ad units, their viewability, especially below the fold, is almost half of what it is above the fold. So keep this in mind and try to think where these ad units should be positioned. And our findings show, based on some of these researches that we've done, then the 160 by 600 or the 300 by 600 ad units perform the best and have the strongest viewability. Also keep in mind that try to select the 300 by 600 ad unit, for example, to be the main size and allow similar size ads. Or if you use responsive codes, then specify what other sizes you would also like to see inside this, because that would increase your auction pressure. So imagine the 300 by 600 as your ad container, and you just specify what other sizes you're also confident or comfortable showing in there. So the opportunity here is again to reposition the low viewability, especially the 728 by 90 or 300 by 250 ad units. If they are below the fold, try to move them up to the above the fold section. That's where they usually perform better, and use the 300 by 600 ad unit or the 160 by 600 ad units instead. And the 300 by 600 actually takes me, or that ad size takes me to the next slide, which is more about the implementation itself. So sticky ads is something that you might have read about and heard of and did see on websites as well. So sticky ads are the ad formats which are pinned basically on the page, and no matter how you scroll, they are always there, or they follow the content. So this is something that our policy, if you read our help center and the policy section of our help center, you actually see that it's not permitted. However, talk to your account manager. We can take a look and we can assess would there be any value add using the sticky ads, and then you could be whitelisted for the sticky ad implementation as well. And the 300 by 600 ad unit, if I just go back to the previous slide, hopefully this will work for me. Exactly. So you can see if I compare the above the fold performance, 67% viewability and 42% viewability below the fold. So you can definitely increase the below the fold viewability as well, not necessarily just moving the 300 by 600 above the fold, but you can actually make it sticky. And it can just, sit on the sidebar somewhere. And once you hit that part of the page, so you have a long form content, a long article, then it would be on the side, on the left-hand side, right-hand side, and then it could just follow the user as they scroll down. So that will definitely have a positive impact on your viewability. One thing to keep in mind, and that's, I wouldn't even call it the opportunity, but that's definitely something you want to consider every single time you implement ad units on your page, and that is user experience. So before even considering implementing sticky ads on your page, think about it. Would my users like it? Would they actually accept it? Would they just go with the ad unit? Would that ad unit really stick out? Does it actually blend in my content? Is my website built in a way when I don't just have my page and then the ad unit right next to it, just outside of the normal website and format? So think about these, because this can definitely have an impact. If you look at the KPIs or the impact of sticky ad versus standard, you can also see that how many seconds. So for 5 seconds pin, the 728 by 90s, 40+% viewability increased all the way up to 70+ viewability, and so on the other ones as well. So sticky ads can definitely impact the viewability of your ads and can increase the CTR. So this was the desktop. So let's just move along to mobile web best practices. So we recently had some changes as well. Let's just see if it goes. There we go. So let's just talk about the two type of positions for ads, or actually types of pages. So there's the listing pages, and there will also be the content pages. So let's start with the listing pages. Usually publishers who have a lot of feeds, so news publishers, weather websites, live score websites, there's a lot of listings, classifieds as well, or all the other likes. So what we usually do recommend is the default size should be the 320 by 100 ad unit, and then again you can enable the similar size ads, so you can also fit in a 320 by 50 ad unit. Now, how these sizes are selected is based on your implementation, so what you specify, or if you leave it to Google just to AdSense to run it automatically, then it will find you the ad unit which has the higher RPM. Okay, so whoever is paying you more, so whichever size is paying you more, AdSense will put that creative size or will display that creative size. So keep in mind 320 by 100 should be the default size, and try to move away from the 320 by 50. It has also an increased CTR, and it has higher viewability because it's a thicker ad, if I can say that. Then the other one you can see in blue, the other format is the 300 by 250. So one of the most popular ad sizes in our Google Display Network, but I probably think that it's around the world in every network. So this format works very well on desktop and works amazing on mobile as well. So I would definitely use it as much as I could, because it has, obviously, it's a larger format, it has higher viewability, its CTR rates are higher, and its average CPM or RPM is higher than the 320 by 100 size.
And yeah, just to note as well, with that 300 by 250, we're now allowing for publishers to put that above the fold on the first screen of the mobile site. But like we said, just be mindful of the user experience, and we'd recommend you to put it at the crease of that first fold.
Exactly. And also make sure to stay policy compliant. Don't place more than one ad per view. So there should be more content than ads on the page. And so this was the listing pages, but I believe that most of you probably have content pages, and we would like to give you some food for thought as well to see where these ad units are performing best. So the 320 by 100 ad unit, you can see the yellow ad is really performing well on the top of the page or on listing pages. If you have content pages, you can place it on the top of the page, but try not to place right on the top. So leave the menu there, or the title of the article or something in there, because users would just automatically scroll down to see the content. So if you have an ad unit right on the top above the fold, then basically you're probably doing more harm than anything, because your users would be very unlikely to see that ad unit. But again, every site is different, so do the A/B testing. See if one implementation or just moving the ad a few pixels down would actually work better for you. Then the 300 by 250 ad unit. So this again is something that was not permitted before to be shown above the fold, but we were already recommending to have the 300 by 250 ad unit just peaking above the fold. So when it peaks above the fold, you have enough content on the page, and you're also ensuring that the users are seeing the ad unit and they can engage with that ad unit. So that has probably the best performing setting, but we will show you that one, and we will show you some example. But usually when the 300 by 250 is peaking above the fold, or is just right below the fold, so the very top of the below the fold. So one thing to keep in mind is that spacing. So I do see a lot of not violations, but some highlights that publishers are not implementing the ad units the correct way. So make sure that you leave spacing between the content and the ad units to decrease the number of accidental clicks. What you really want to avoid is to have invalid traffic deductions or invalid click deductions at the end of your payment, because those are the ones that could cause this. So make sure that you leave enough space, and especially if you use these enhanced features of having those arrows or images or other elements inside the ad unit, then they are well distinguishable and also further away from your content. And then let me just get through this listing page, and here we go. So some of the best formats and positions for ads. Obviously the good, better, and best are not in this specific order, because it could work, one of them could work very well for you and the other cannot. But what we do see is that from now on you can have the 300 by 250 above the fold. That could be an option. See it for yourself, do some tests, and see if that 300 by 250 above the fold, if you just have the title, for example, and you have an ad right below it, works, and then the content, or you should actually look other ways. And then if you look at the better, so the example in the middle, you see that 320 by 100 could work best if it's on the top, or if it just replaces or switches positions with the title. So it's just below the title. Up to you, run some tests again. And then below the fold, 300 by 250. And the best one, what we do really see working most for our publishers, is when you have the title, you have the content, you have some image there as well, but make sure that the 300 by 250 ad unit is peaking above the fold. That one has probably the best effect, and the 300 by 250 has higher RPMs or CPMs than the 320 by 100, so you're actually doubling down on that. So increased viewability and higher CPMs as well. So here's a live example, as much as we could make it live for you because we didn't want to share too much information from this publisher. So if you look at the before and after of the implementation, you can see what the publisher did. They just moved their ad units slightly higher up. So they changed the location of the ad units and moved them to the top of each of these screens. So the above the fold is on top. Then in the middle, you see the first section of the below the fold. And then again, after a certain screen size, if you move down, you do see that the ad unit was placed again just right below the fold, or right below that dotted line. And if you look at the metrics, you can see that viewability from that 23% increased up to 48%, and that was also the increase in CTR. So you can see that the ads were clicked more, so it resulted in a much higher click-through rate. Overall, the revenues went up as well. And then responsive ad units. So this is a very interesting topic because I get the question that sometimes, should we use the dedicated ad sizes or should we use the responsive ad units? Our website is responsive. It works different, or well, it has a different layout on mobile than on desktop. Absolutely fine. So what I would really want to do here is that I want to show you two ways of probably being more specific with your responsive ad units, because that's just one thing that I select the ad unit, I give it a name in AdSense, for example, and then I just select that it should be a responsive size. I can actually go more deeper in there, and I can specify what other sizes I want to allow in there. But back to the responsive ad units first, just a quick summary. So you should do an A/B test, see what size works better for you. So if you only use 300 by 250 ad units, then you can probably just use the dedicated size. If you use 728 by 90 above the fold for your articles, that's definitely not going to work on mobile, for example. So on high-end mobile devices, 728 by 90 will just break your page, and when users are scrolling down, they can just side scroll, etc. So what I want to show you here is the responsive ad units in AdSense and what you can do. So the example, what I picked, that I want to show a 336 by 280 ad size on mobile if the screen size is over 340 pixels. So if my screen size, because people use the phablets or smaller tablets, you can definitely just specify, okay, what should be the minimum width for the screen size. So as you can see, the third line is at media, and then in the brackets you can specify what should be the minimum width. So you can modify your ad code, and then you can specify, okay, so if the ad slot 1 is, then you can specify what size can go in there. So you can adjust the size based on the viewer screen size. And you can do this multiple times as well. And then you can really say, and you have control over what ad sizes AdSense can automatically put into the ad units for you. Then those users who use Ad Exchange, and I know that many of you don't use Ad Exchange at this stage, is using the Google Publisher tag. So the example here is that I have 1024 by 800 screen size, and I want to show a 970 by 250 ad size on my desktop. So then I use this Google Publisher tag API, so I can specify one or more sizes as the size set for an ad slot. And then I can select an alternative size set for the different browser sizes. So the second step should be that you just lay out your ad units and the sizes that you want to allow, and you put them into a matrix. So it's called the responsive design matrix. And you say, if I have a leaderboard on desktop, what are the sizes, for example, desktop, I want to include? and then that could be 720 by 90, 970 by 90, or 970 by 250. So for this example, I just highlighted that on desktop PC, I want to use these sizes. And then the third step is that I call the size mapping to map the ad sizes to browser sizes. Okay, so the API just checks and calls the size mapping first, and then define size mapping, so calls the define size mapping to implement the mapping that I specify. So this is how it works in DFP and Ad Exchange. If you have further question on this, I'm happy to provide more information. We can take this offline, and our details will be shared, and you can also talk to your account manager of this. So then additional tips and resources. So this is the last pillar of our best practices presentation. So I want to talk about a little bit about page speed, AMP, so the accelerated mobile pages, lazy loading, and passbacks. So let's start with page speed. And this is something that I believe that many publishers started to focus on. And it comes up almost every conversation I have with publishers when we go more in depth on how their entire stack looks like. I'm not sure, Olivia, if you guys have any conversations on these, but I believe it's quite similar.
It is, yeah. No, I have quite a few conversations with publishers about this. So as you can see from the slide, the quicker and more responsive your site is, and the faster loading time it has, the more probable it is to increase your viewability.
Exactly. And if you look at the chart, so on the horizontal axis, you see the page load time, and on the vertical one, the viewability. What's really interesting is that imagine your site loaded in 19 seconds. Okay, so look at that 19 seconds there. And if I manage to trim down that load time to 10 seconds, then our study and research shows that on average, you can increase your ads viewability by 12%. Then, if I want to trim down the 10-second load time to 5 seconds, then I can have an additional 25% increase in viewability. And just think about it, how long 5 seconds take. So I could just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Imagine what you can do within these 5 seconds and what your users are probably doing in 5 seconds while waiting to load your page. Because usually text loads, then the images, ads. So I could be just far down already in the middle of the article reading something when the ad is just loading on the top. So make sure that you keep this in mind and look at your stack and how your stack is actually done. But we're going to talk about it at the last part, which is the passbacks. So key takeaways is that the faster pages decrease user bounce rate. So the faster the page loads, I'm more likely to read it. And the second thing is faster pages increase user engagement. So I'm happy to stay on the page, browse more, so that results in more page views, more visits, or more session lengths. So that's definitely a win for the publisher. So do some checks and review your site speed. And we also have the link, which is testmysite.thinkwithgoogle.com. I know it's not an easy one, but we will share this link with you so you can take a look yourself and see how your site performs. Then the second thing is the accelerated mobile pages. And accelerated mobile pages is a project, well, it's an open source initiative that enables publishers to create mobile optimized content once and then have it load instantly everywhere. So we use multiple server locations, and wherever I'm closest, AMP sites will load faster for me. And in here, we took a look at 2 metrics. One of them was viewability, and the second one was CTR, the click-through rate. And we compared the AMPed pages with the non-AMPed standard pages. And we did see that the faster the page loaded, because of the AMP technology, ad viewability increased, Therefore, the CTR increased as well, so it has a much higher CTR on the ads. So this is definitely something that you should look at in the future to see how you can simplify your site or even move to the accelerated mobile pages.
Yeah, and I can completely agree with that. So I've spoken to quite a number of publishers now who have implemented AMP, and they've said that it's vastly improved the user experience. It's really decreased bounce rates, and it's also encouraged more users to visit the pages and spend longer time on the website. So yeah, I've had really, really positive feedback about this.
Excellent. Great. So let's move on to lazy loading. So you've heard about lazy loading from Olivia before, and that's something that we usually recommend using. What's the point loading the entire website and using up all the data the publisher or the users have on their mobile devices, even on slower desktop or on slower connections on desktop? What's the point loading the entire page? Users only want to see where they are. They don't care what the technology behind page load is, right? So what our findings were, and we were looking at 3 metrics here, is that we looked at the total active view eligible impressions. So what's the impact of lazy loading on the total active view eligible impressions? And what is the impact on the total active view measurable impressions? So eligible and measurable impressions obviously decrease because there's not that many impressions that we show as the user goes through the page. Also, publishers with long form content, think about it. If your users are hardly ever scrolling down to the bottom of the page, then and you have an ad unit there, then what's the point having that ad unit in there? So think about it and see where you should position those ads. But here, the key metric is that if you have less ad units, or the key takeaway is that if you have less measurable impressions on the page, that means that the impressions that you show to your users actually have a much higher active view viewable impressions. So all those impressions and all those ads that you're showing to your users are actually visible. So this is why the lazy loading can increase your viewability, but reduce your supply. So have a look, discuss it among your teams or with your webmaster and see whether you would benefit from this. Run some tests. You can create a test site and you can see how the lazy loading would impact that all. And then the last piece is latency from passbacks, which will obviously have an impact on your viewability as well. Now, this is probably the most important and interesting topic to me, at least, because when working with publishers who have complex setups or publishers who work with various ad networks and they introduce their own ad server or a third-party ad server, they tend to overthink this and try to bring in as many resources and sources and networks to their stack using multiple SSPs or exchanges to get the most out of every single exchange. What they don't really see is that how long it takes from an ad call to actually serve an ad on the page, because the call has to go through various ways and has to has to go through certain passbacks, auctions, and decisions as well. So this is definitely something you want to review and you want to simplify. If you're using multiple ad networks, see which one have the highest fill rate and which are giving you decent CPMs. Keep those. Those networks who have very low amount fill rate or lower CPMs, then try to exclude them. You'll probably win more by excluding some of those networks than just having all of them competing for one position, slowing down your ad serving. So in this slide, you actually see what happens when line items have passbacks and what happens to the viewability when line items do not have any passbacks. So when line items are served, and we used our own ad server, DoubleClick for Publishers, and what we did see that it definitely had a positive impact on viewability, because the more time it takes my ad serving system to figure out whose ad to show, Again, same with lazy loading. My users could be all the way to the bottom of the page. Most importantly, if my ad server decides to close the ad unit, then the page starts jumping up and down, and I'm sure you've seen it all. So that's one of the reasons why user experience just, again, gets hit by it. So think about simplifying your stack and reduce the latency, and that will definitely have an increase in your viewability. And then the summary, right? So we are getting to the final slide. Just to give you some summary on what we really talked about is, a few things. So if an ad isn't seen, then it cannot have an impact. So always keep that in mind, because if I can't see that ad, I cannot interact with it, I cannot click on it, it cannot impact my decision in the future to buy something if I've never seen it.
Yeah, and then the second point was about viewability and how it's good for all of the advertising ecosystem. So this is both advertisers and publishers alike. So the more transparent, the better it is for both.
Exactly. And strive for viewability. So it's not for fold positions. So don't think about your inventories that, okay, I have the above the fold positions and below the fold positions, because it can happen very easily that you have positions where your users spend most of the time in the middle of the page and not on the top of the page. If you happen to have a cooking website, then definitely the recipe is not right on the top of the page. And me, who wants to cook something, I'm definitely staying where the ingredients and the instructions are. So keep that in mind, because that's the most valuable part of your page.
Yeah, and like we just touched on, reducing the number of passbacks we really find can really improve viewability. So just be mindful of what you are passing back, especially through DFP.
Exactly. So make sure that you reduce the number of SSPs if you use multiple of them. Try to reduce or review the number of ad networks you're working with, because that can definitely have an impact on your viewability.
Yeah. And we think as well, making sure that you optimize your site both for mobile and desktop, because there are clear differences between the two.
Yep, exactly. So desktop, you have all the positions and all the freedom to put your ads wherever you want. On mobile, you have a narrow tunnel and you're just going through that. You don't have all that freedom. You can play with the sizes, but not with the positions that much. On desktop, you can be very, very creative, and we do see very creative solutions as well. And then keep the user experience in mind. I think that's the key part that you should all think of. Okay, what would my user think if I implement this? What would be the user feedback if I implemented that? And always try to be open for feedback and ask not just your friends, but random people as well, or try to open up a channel where your users can actually submit their feedback, because that's gold. That is definitely the thing that you want to hear, because that will form a user base that will also keep and grow your user base as well.
Yeah, great. And finally, we suggest that you aim for a viewability percentage of around 50%. So like we mentioned, the industry average is 51%, but a lot of publishers we work with have achieved over 60% viewability, and this is at an account level.
Exactly. So as we promised in the beginning of the session, we are coming to the question side, and I'm so glad to see that we have so many questions. The last time I refreshed, we had 5 questions, and now we have 36. So well done all. We try to address many of these questions. So let me see.
Yeah, we've probably got time for about 3 or 4 questions.
Yes. Anything, Olivia, that you would like to pick, because we have so many of them. Will we receive recording of this, please? Of course, yes. So that's definitely a very quick question that I can do, or I can promise, or an answer. So there's this question from Aliyah, that I have 34% viewability on mobile. If I increase my viewability to 50, how much is it improve my earnings? Okay, so there are 2 questions. So let me read out the second one. Please recommend any lazy loader library Thanks. Okay, so these were the two questions from Ilya. So 34% viewability on mobile. I have to say that according to our numbers, I do see that on mobile, the average viewability currently that we have at Google is about 36-37%. So you're not that far off from the Google average. However, the IAB recommendation and what we're aiming for is much higher. So I would still, if I'm on mobile, I would be still aiming realistically for a 45-50% viewability, the minimum, because on mobile you have very restricted space where you can place your ads. So if you increase your viewability to 50%, how will it improve your earnings? So what we do find is that increasing viewability by 1% can result in 1 or 1.5% revenue increase. Okay, so this is something that our intelligence team calculated and we figured. So try to have a look and see if it correlates with your site and your positions. I would be very keen to hear your feedback whether our calculations were correct.
Right. Okay,
and on the lazy loader side library, I would be happy to. So I believe that we have your email address as well. So we are happy to come back to you with some recommendations there as well.
So I'll take the next one then from David, who says, is the sticky 320 by 100 and 300 by 250 permitted by Google policy for mobile?
So you can't have a sticky on your mobile device. However, you can use page level ads or anchor ads for mobile. The sticky ads are just limited to the desktop view.
Yep, that's very correct. Okay, so there's someone who's asking if we could test their site. I'm not going to read out the URL. We can definitely take a look. If we have your contact details, well, we definitely do have your email address, then we're happy to give you a one-on-one consultation just on your earnings. Let's see, we have so many questions. So anything that we can... Okay, are you suggesting, so Ludovico sent us a question, are you suggesting to use techniques such as lazy loading to achieve 100% ads viewability? Or will it change just the numbers? I mean, is the same I have 100 impressions with 50% viewability or 50% impressions with 100% viewability? Interesting questions. I probably have to read it again, but I think I'm getting what you're saying. So 100% viewability, I don't think I've seen a website or an AdSense account or AdExchange account which had 100% viewability, right? No. I don't think it could be achievable. You should be the first one to show us, and then we will see it.
But I think, with lazy loading, it's just a recommended technique.
Yeah, so that's a recommended technique. But even if you didn't even have any lazy loading technology because you just had your site and one ad unit on it, I would still doubt that we would see 100% ad viewability on that page. Yeah. Why is that? That's another topic and question. But to achieve 100% viewability with lazy loading is definitely not something that you could do. I would still aim for the recommended viewability percentages, 50% plus.
And then someone's asking about viewability on the lowest performing ads. So with this, we recommend that you look at your viewability on an account level. Bear in mind the lower performing ads to make sure that viewability is brought up to 50%. However, just isolating an ad unit and in trying to improve one ad unit is not what we'd recommend. We'd recommend an account level viewability percentage.
Okay, so Benjamin also had an interesting question. So, hi, I had a visibility score that was above 80% on AdSense locations. Since I switched to DFP, the same spot scores now below 40%. Any idea? So in this case, I would definitely take a look at your ad server setup, because to me it seems, and I probably addressed this before, that there could be multiple elements of that setup causing this. So if AdSense is not trafficked in the correct way, or you're using passbacks, etc., etc. So we should look at your account and have a look to see. But one thing that I would like to highlight, that if you have an AdSense ad unit and you hard code it in the page, that is probably the simplest way to monetize a small or medium website when you don't have that much direct sales, or you're not working with other agencies. Because if you have that ad unit directly implemented in the page, that is when that ad code doesn't have to go through any systems, it's just there. If
Yeah.
you have a more complex setup, it's a different story. Then these things are very minor, but you see the highest impact, or well, the best performance if your ad unit is hard-coded in the page, especially if it's an AdSense or Ad Exchange.
Yeah, it does
tag.
sound though on this one, if you have moved recently to DFP, then it sounds like it could be passbacks.
Yeah.
And that's causing latency and hence causing your viewability to have decreased.
Yes.
I think we've got probably time just for
one more question.
Yeah.
So Angie asks us the question, what is the optimum time to keep an ad sticky for? Now, this is a very valid and interesting question because it's really up to you how your website is implemented. So think about your page and then, think about a long page. And it's really worth using a sticky ad on a page when I actually me as a user, have to scroll on your page. And you want to make sure that certain elements of that page are staying within my site. So the same thing with a sticky ad, I wouldn't actually look at the time scale of the implementation itself. I would just look and see, okay, where does it fit on my page and how long should it follow the user? So if I have my long form content and then below that I have my content recommendation tools, I also have the comment section, and I'm again just having some sponsored articles or house ads or the social buttons, etc., then is it worth just having the sticky ad follow the users all the way down, or just to the point where the user is usually stopped? I would leave it to you. So that's what I would do, and that's how I would consider. And I wouldn't look at time at all. I would just look at how well the sticky ad fits into my page. Is my website design allowing it nicely? So usually if you have a sidebar, that can end, and then you can just have the sticky ad there and continuing to stay in that sidebar. So, that's probably the best recommendation I can give.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the length of your site, but we would recommend, if you can, put the ad at the top and then allow the sticky to run as a continuation down to the bottom. That would be probably best suited.
Exactly.
On the sticky.
I think we got to the end of the conversation. I'm so glad that you were so interactive. So at the moment, we're counting on 44 questions. So there's plenty to answer. And we promise we will get back to you all. And we will also offer you the consultations if needed, because I would be very keen to hear your feedback on the presentation itself, but also how you feel about the viewability and how do you see viewability overall.
Definitely. Well, yeah, thank you very much for joining us today and joining the Hangout. And we'll send the recording and the presentation to all the people that registered on the email. And join us again soon.
Okay, thank you very much, and bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.